Good evening. Thank you for coming. Your host here is laryngitis. I went to urgent care, tested for COVID and that. But they said that the sinus drainage got in my vocal cords, and maybe a week or they said before it goes away. Anyway, I appreciate everybody coming. I want to make sure we utilize our time as best we can. I want to recognize Larry Gray as the supervisor here at Commerce. He's a fabulous supervisor. We also have a trustee, George Weber, in the back here. Raise your hand, George. And they were kind enough to give us this facility for this event tonight. I did put an invitation out to DTE, Consumers Power, and the Michigan Utility Commission, Public Utility Commission. We were turned down by all three. However, DTE was going to try to have somebody here. It turns out they're not going to be able to, but they said they will, everybody that signed in has an issue, they are going to get with you one-on-one to fix the problem. And twice before, we had a problem in my district, going back to when I was in the State House. And they did a fabulous job of following up with people and fixing the problem. So those of you that have still have an ongoing issue, they should be able to get that fixed. The other thing they wanted to know was whether you have just had this one issue with this one storm, or has it been ongoing? You've been having problems constantly. Kevin, why don't you come up here? The Michigan Utility Commission has just arrived. My staffer, Kevin, is going to put them up here so you can see them all. These guys are the people who you're supposed to go to look after your needs. The utilities, there they are, they've arrived. Michigan Public Service Commission. So the utilities are basically a 90% monopoly in Michigan. They get a guaranteed profit margin. So what you're supposed to be able to do is go to those people and talk to them about your issues. And they were not going to come tonight. They're appointed by the governor, or I believe all three coming up for another appointment. If you don't like what's been going on, I would definitely let the governor know you think you need a change there at that commission. With that, if we can pop this on. This will save my voice a little bit, because I didn't say this stuff, but I did an interview 2 days ago, and I had I didn't have much of a voice then either, but just save mine. This is a pretty short clip. And then what we're going to do is have you come up one by one and we'll have you come up one by one. Try to keep it around between close to 2 minutes as you can. Well, let me try this and see how many people are going to speak. How many of you want to speak tonight? Okay, I think about 3 minutes would be good. We should be fine with that.
Thank you for being here tonight. And what is your take on what's been going on with DTE? I mean, is it a sign of just we had horrible weather, or are there issues with this utility company?
No, there definitely are issues. This isn't an outlier. We are the second to the worst in having outages and getting them repaired and back up and running. Minnesota, which is a couple states over, much colder, lots of trees, and they're near the best at stopping these outages. So it's not a matter of the climate, it's not a matter of the weather. We have to do some things here in Michigan to improve this, and the costs in Michigan we're one of the absolute top in terms of costs, yet we have these constant outages. So what I'm doing is having a town hall meeting on Monday at 5 o'clock at the Commerce Township Hall for people to come in and be able to ask questions. We've invited DTE, Consumers Power, and the Michigan Utility Commission to come in and answer questions. And people are really upset. My whole district has been impacted very, very negatively, and it just keeps happening. They've had record profits. They want to increase again the rates. So people are just furious, and they want answers.
Now, you mentioned you invited DTE and consumers. Have they confirmed they will attend?
I have not heard yes or no on DTE. Consumers is not, and the Michigan Public Utility Commission is not going to come. Now, they are going to Jackson, where Consumers has their headquarters. They're going to Dearborn. I haven't heard Dearborn being a huge issue, but Oakland County has been smashed. They're not coming to Oakland County.
Well, there's also they're going to have a virtual town hall as well later this month.
The problem with these things is with the virtual, I've seen these done before. The question comes up, well, that one doesn't look good. Oh, DTE or Consumers Power, you're doing a great job. Let's take that question. Same thing when they control a town hall. Do they take cards and, oh, that one doesn't look good? This one, everyone come up to the microphone. They can ask any questions, no censorship, no screening. They can ask and make any comment they want.
It's not a great look. Do you think these companies are avoiding accountability? I mean, we've been trying, and we will continue trying to get some of these folks from DTE particularly to come here and talk to us, and that has been very difficult to do.
It is. I don't understand. DTE is not, I don't want to attack them because they haven't said yes or no. Consumers has, and the Michigan Utility Commission has said they're not going to come. So we are going to tape it. We are going to be able to turn that over to those three entities for their response. We're going to ask people to write out their complaints. We're going to take down information from people and get that over to the utilities. We want to make sure there's transparency, that nothing is screened, nothing is kind of scripted. People can come in and make their comments, and we will get that to all three of those entities.
Are they just not staffed enough? Do they need to update their power grid and their lines and their headquarters? Is that why potentially they're trying to raise rates through all of this? Is it come down to just manpower and updating facilities?
Well, it's a pretty bad look when they announced a record, was $1.5 billion profits
Some
last
good
week.
earnings calls recently.
And then also they're going to do rate increases, I think $12 average a month. I was also looking through, and the residential rates have been exploding, but the commercial rates have stayed the same. So they're balancing the back of these costs on top of the residential customer. And on top of that, the amount that they give in campaign donations. Gretchen Whitmer was the #1 to receive campaign donations. She appoints all of the members of the Utility Commission that makes the oversight decisions. So I'd love it if she had a representative there to explain, these are your people. So the governor appoints the people, oversees the utilities, and then they oversee the utilities. So it starts at the governor.
When you think about these earnings calls, these record profits, you're hearing about rate increases or the potential for more rate increases, and then you hear $35 is the credit that is offered to customers who were severely impacted for several days or more. What's your reaction to that?
We have had so many calls into my office that are just furious about this. You get $35 when maybe your pipes exploded, all of your refrigerated goods are lost. You've got to go stay in a hotel or a motel, and you get $35. Yeah, it's an insult.
Obviously, you talk about campaign contributions. They have contributed to your campaign as well in the past. And so how difficult is it for you to sit here and criticize the way they have perhaps conducted business here and have left people in the dark, and you've accepted money from them as well?
I've had campaigns where I had to run as a 50-50 district. A lot of money gets spent on those. I think it was like $2 million in the last race. They gave me like $3,200 or $3,500. I can happily give $3,500 back. That's nothing. What the governor got was well over $100,000. I think it was $115,000. And it's incumbent upon her. Here, I'm out here for transparency. I mean, is she? Am I hearing her out and about in Oakland County looking at what's going on, the devastation, say, why aren't we getting this fixed? I'm not seeing that.
How about in the legislature, both across the aisle, your fellow party members? Do you think, does it make a difference? It seems to not make a difference to you. It's not a lot of money if they never support you again. Is that fine with you? And do you think it would be fine with your co-legislators?
Well, like I said, I think they gave me $3,600 and spent $300,000 to defeat me in the last election. So balance those two out.
Have you had contact with DTE about finding a way to make this right for customers? I know you have the town hall coming up, but have you spoken to anyone there?
I have, and I will say with DTE, I have two major issues in my district. They came out. One was a tree issue. The subdivisions thought the trees were all going to be clear cut. They met with every single subdivision president and allayed their fears that that was not going to happen. Another one, they had to put this connector in for this underground pipe, and in Milford they thought there was going to be a giant explosion. They came in, met with absolutely everybody. I have to say, in those two cases, the only two things I called DTE on, they were absolutely fabulous. And by the way, they didn't get involved with trying to defeat me in that campaign. It was the other one. But no, I'm here because I have seen so much going wrong in my district over and over and over again, and I just want them to provide answers.
And we are short on time, but quickly, do you see any relief in the future, even if some kind of legislation is passed? Does DTE end up just passing that cost on back to the consumers?
Well, there's people like me who are going to be raising hell about this. They have got to start upgrading, and again, that goes to the Michigan Utility Commission to oversee this. They're the one that sign off on everything, sign off on the increases, sign off on what are you doing with the money. I think they've been doing a horrible job. Their job is to do that oversight, and they have not been doing it. So I think the buck stops there. I am one legislator, and I'm doing what I can do to stop this stuff, but it's got to come from the top.
Thank you, Senator, so much for joining us. Good insight here on the DTE power outages.
Okay, well, who would like to be first? Line up.
Hi, my name is John Arabucky. I live in Springfield Township, and I'm not here to throw stones. I lucked out this time. I didn't have the power outage, which is unusual. Usually if a dog pisses on my neighbor's tire, I lose power. But I am a little ticked about the excessive profits. It said $1.2 billion, but that was for the last quarter. They actually made $6.6 billion last year, 5.7 the year before, and 5.5 the year before that. And I'd like to see some kind of legislation that has them use some of this money to improve the grid, so to say. Maybe even protect some of these power stations so we don't have an issue like they had down in Texas with people shooting transformers and stuff. One other thing, is there any federal grant money that can be allocated to maybe for us people and seniors, maybe to get whole house generators at a deeply discounted rate? That's it.
That's a good question. Teresa will definitely follow up with you on that. You're correct about those profits. I was reading in the newspaper that they sighed through and got rid of a lot of services employees just before this happened. So they announced the profits, and to get the profits, they made all these cuts in order to make that happen. Who would like to be next? Yes.
Hi, I'm Dan Cable from Plymouth Township, and I just want to thank you for having this hearing. I think it's wise of you to do this, and I appreciate that you're doing this. I'd like to apologize to anybody in the room who I'm going to offend with my comments. It's not intentional. I don't know anybody here. But I have 2 points. One is about DTE. One is about the Public Service Commission. DTE is, as we all know, it's a regulated monopoly. It has no competition. When you plug into the wall, you're going to pay DTE. You don't have a choice. All expenses associated with DTE are paid by the people in this room. So if DTE does marketing on television, we pay for that. If DTE pays for the lights at the zoo, we pay for that. Did anybody ask us if we wanted to pay for lights at the zoo? No. So what's my point? My point is this is taxation without representation. We don't have a representative to deal with DTE. We have 3 appointees, the Public Service Commission, who, as you just said, sign off. They sign off. So my second point is, who are those three people? If you were to make up the three people in your mind that they ought to be, if there were only going to be three, you might say one should be an engineer, because DTE is going to want to spend money on technology, on power generation in the future, and transmission and distribution. You might say there ought to be an accountant, because this is going to cost money. And you might say there ought to be an economist, because we have to project what the rate base is going to do in the future. Are people moving here? Are they moving away? You need to forecast that. So those would be kind of three ideas for those three commissioners. What do we have? We have an attorney with a poli-science major. We have an attorney with a public policy major. And we have a junior engineer who was the head of the Women of Energy Club. Those are the three commissioners. How did we get them? The governor appointed them. So I don't know enough about any of this to give you any advice. But if it were me, I'd be trying to fix the structure of the Public Service Commission. Maybe those people need to be elected at large. Maybe there needs to be more of them so we can have some engineers in there, some real engineers in there. But the idea that everybody needs to be an attorney to be a commissioner of the Public Service Commission, to me, is a complete wrong answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. I like that idea of electing them, because what can you do about it? Because they're political appointees, and it's their job to make sure the utilities, the monopoly, are doing the work for you, and they're not doing it. And what do? Who would like to be next?
Thank you, Senator, for having this meeting. I appreciate that. And I'm sure all the community that's not even represented here must appreciate it as well, taking your time and your effort and your energies and resources to at least address these problems. I'm going to talk about something a little different, but it's a power surge issue that happened in 2019, back in September. It was a beautiful sunny day. There was a surge that destroyed our whole house microwave oven combination. The cost to replace that was $2,700. And I was thinking about the time before, and I had a TV that went out a few years earlier, and it seems like they've been having issues with extreme power surges, which are pretty devastating to homes and electronics, as you must imagine. So shortly after that, though, a few years ago, I placed a whole house home surge protector. I had that installed professionally. And then on 12/31 this past year, December, we witnessed an extreme destructive power surge from DTE's power grid. At approximately 3:30 in the morning, power went out. A short time after, the power was restored. At that time, the whole house surge protector, which I put in, which is a high-end quality unit that protects up to 108,000 amps, was destroyed. It actually had blown up. So I was kind of curious about that. So first thing I did was I contacted Eaton Corporation, and I talked to one of their quality engineers. And he advised me that an enormous power surge of 108,000 amps or greater is very unusual for a residential home. And as a matter of fact, he had never heard of one of his or their power surge protectors blowing up as mine did. So it's kind of a destructive moment there, and kind of scary. If that wasn't plugged in, what would have happened to the rest of our home? So shortly after that, sometime during mid-January, there was a nice woman in our area who kind of said, this is enough. We kind of had enough. And I'm kind of representing some of those individuals who've had enough. Marie, our neighbor, canvassed about 280 homes in our subdivision. As a result, there was at least 118, as I understand, losses or people who had issues, and there was 40,000 plus in damages that occurred. So this was in the Wexford Muse subdivision alone. So I'd imagine there's other areas that perhaps didn't report. And these are just the people who reported issues. Some items that were destroyed were power strips that melted, stove circuit boards, whole house surge protectors, backup generator circuit boards. Was kind of ironic, but those things can blow too, I guess. Garage door openers, refrigerators, fuse boxes, light fixtures. One person even noted sparks coming out of the outlets. So another neighbor mentioned that they saw electrical glow through the wall. So what I'm trying to get to is this is just so powerful of a resource here. We need to have something that can hopefully suppress that by someone coming and maybe doing an analysis from the DTE side of the fence and saying, hey, there's a problem here. What concerns me mostly is that there's dangerous amounts of electricity surging through our homes upon DTE's power up process, or perhaps maybe it's the power down when they lose the power. My basic concern is the financial burden, of course, that's placed on the families. But then the real thing that I'm thinking about, and I always think about this aspect when you're dealing with powerful energy sources, what about the safety of our families during these apparent unregulated surges? They're powerful enough to destroy electronics and potentially can cause fires. When I asked DTE back in September of 2019, and again in December of 22, the answer was the same: no detectable voltage spikes. So, in other words, the current grid and home meters don't record or relay power surge or voltage spikes, evidently to DTE. So all that sophisticated equipment, you'd think they would have something of that nature. And maybe they do, or maybe they suppress what they want to release. So the way I look at it, though, as a homeowner, the power goes unchecked and apparently unregulated. And I always ask myself questions for safety issues and things like that. I used to be a fire marshal at my place of business where I used to work. You know, some of the questions that come to me are, what happens if there was a baby's crib near an outlet, it's sparking out, or a box of Kleenex, or someone was using an electric blanket that was plugged into the grid. I don't know. Could be devastating and to the safety of individuals, which is moreover my concern. Financial aspect too is pretty impressive for just those few homes. Well, 100 plus homes, $40,000 worth of damage and probably more. Those are my comments. And I do have one last comment. How is DTE going to prepare for the future if they can't even handle current demands of our power system, and the safety, of course. So thank you for taking your time, and appreciate you letting me have a voice at this time. Thanks, Senator.
For testifying, and they definitely, DTE said they are going to get back to everybody who would like to be next.
We do need those cards turned in after the public testimony, so Kevin right there is going to take any steps with this. Thank you.
Thanks.
So could we increase the volume for the speakers?
I'm going to try to talk loud. Yep.
No, you're screaming.
Okay. Is this good? This good? Okay. Thank you very much, Senator. My name's Brian Watson. I'm from Highland Township. Previously, I was in West Bloomfield, so I, can't get out of your district. But a couple of things I wanted to ask about, and I wanted to ask you about. So, the CEO of DTE, he made $11 million last year. The top 5 executives made $22 million. And it seems like the day after 400,000 customers lost their power, the CEO was busy telling Wall Street that it was a solid year, he said, for all our stakeholders, 2022. Apparently the customers are not stakeholders in his mind. And now they're also planning to spend 3% of their share value on dividends, going out to, shareholders. Paying out those dividends doesn't turn anybody's lights on. So, but what I noticed is there are 40 communities in Michigan who are not subject to for-profit utilities for their electricity. They're public power communities. And we often think, I thought, public power communities that are getting the electricity, generating it from nonprofits themselves, must be small towns. Well, Lansing is not a small town. Traverse City is not a small town. Holland, Michigan isn't even a small town. There are communities in Michigan who have set aside this for-profit motive and gone to public power. And my question for you is, should Oakland County give serious consideration to doing that? Are we done with DTE and investors and Wall Street running our essential services like electricity? Should we look at somebody who is only focused on delivering electricity to the community? Somebody for whom the customers are the stakeholders, not the investors, not the banks, not somebody else who's living and got their money buried someplace else, but the customers themselves are their stakeholders. And so I would propose that we give some real serious consideration to getting off the for-profit utility monopoly when it comes to services that are essential to our getting from one day to the next, and instead look at the public power model. And I'd love to know if you would support such a move.
Thank you for that. You're right on those numbers. They seem accurate from what I recollect. Ohio has complete energy choice. So, as Lisa mentioned, if you plug in here, you got to go to one of the monopolies. In Ohio, it's complete energy choice. You can go anywhere in that grid to buy it at the cheapest. Their rates are much, much lower. And they've built 13 new plants. We built no new plants, and our rates are the highest in the Midwest, one of the highest in the nation. And we have a monopoly. Anytime you have a monopoly, that's what happens. I tried to get more free choice in Michigan, and that's why I had $300,000 spent on me to defeat me in the previous election. They have money that they use in campaigns. It's very scary when they can spend that kind of money. Another person who opposed them got over $1 million spent against them. So this monopoly is grown too big, too powerful. Whether it becomes like Lansing, if they've got a good public utility, that's great. If there's another one that wanted to do some kind of a private operation, the was better, that'd be great. But by state law, the whole state of Michigan, 90% of it is by law is a monopoly. So I would be open to giving them latitude to do what they need to do to get better service and better rates. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand if that meant yes, I would support public power, or no, I wouldn't. The law does indeed say what it says, or mandate what it does today, but thank God you're in the legislature so you can change the law.
Well, actually, I'm the minority, I'm not changing anything. There's no problem we have. But if a community like Lansing has a great public system, and that's what they're like, and they're doing good and expanding that, I'm all for it. If there's a community that says we don't want to do it publicly, we want to bid out and do private, I'm for that. Free choice. But I do want to keep moving on. Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Senator Runestad. Thank you for hosting this tonight. And Tom Resnick, Deputy Mayor of the City of Wixom, and I just wanted to add on to some of the comments from Mr. Fields. The extreme power surge that we experienced on December 31st, again, it affected 118 houses that responded to the residents survey that they had sent out, so there's probably many, many more. And again, we had tallied up about $40,000 worth of damages. The one thing that I want to add is that there's little transparency coming from DTE. Here it is 2.5 months later. Every individual claim that residents filed was denied, claims for replacement of appliances or whatever. And my big concern is that So far, no root cause, no preventative action that we know of has been taken. And how do we avoid it in the future if it's avoidable, or what can residents do to help protect their homes and their loved ones from these types of incidents? Again, it was kind of an anomaly in that you don't get these power surges every day. You know, this one was a couple of years apart that we experienced in the same neighborhoods in the city of Wixom. So in addition to the 2 long power outages that we had recently through the storms, these power surges are also of great concern. So again, a little transparency out of DTE and a quick resolution to at least consumers' concerns and their claims would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'll make sure DTE get in touch with you. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. We're moving a little too fast. Who would like to be next? Yes.
I've got a couple questions. The Public Service Commission, is that they're strictly appointed by the governor, correct? So that's basically political patronage? Is there no advice and consent by the Michigan Senate?
That's a good question. I don't know if you have advice. There's certain areas we do have advice and consent. I'm not sure if that's one of them or not.
Okay, is there any oversight committee in
There will be no oversight of these individuals that I can discern. There will be hearings coming up in Lansing. We'll see whether they have this kind of a format. That's why I wanted people to have an opportunity here. I didn't trust in Lansing that people's cards are going to get thrown in the wastebasket at the hearing. People could drive all the way to Lansing and find out we don't have time for you. So I don't know what's going to happen at those hearings. That's why I wanted everyone here to have an opportunity to come up and talk directly to these utilities at the Public Service Commission.
Okay, is there any possibility of having those 2 issues resolved? That you would have advice and consent over the nominations?
My side of the party doesn't control any of that, so I don't know. I can't say what the other side of the aisle will do. Democrats control the House legislature and governor, so I don't know.
Okay, but nothing exists currently?
There's nothing I have heard of any, other than these hearings that I don't know all the detail on, that is supposed to happen in Lansing regarding the Public Service Commission.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Yes.
Hi, I'm Bill Anderson from Highland, and I've got both. I was wishing that the folks from DTE were here tonight to hear my little story and answer my little questions that I have.
They did say they are going to watch this. They're going to get back to every single person who testifies.
Okay. My first one was just a question, and that was that I'm from way back when, say almost 50 years ago when my home was built. At that particular point in time, my home was built with 3 electric meters. Actually 2, and then we added the 3rd. The first one being your residential, the second one being hot water for your bathing, and the 3rd, when we added air conditioning, was a 3rd meter. I went to, now with the new time of day rating that they're going to be imposing on currently here, beginning in March, I went to their website to find out what the rates are for my additional 2 meters. Nothing. So it'll be an interesting thing to find out when what each one of my meters sees for time of day and how what those bills really look like, because way back when the hot water rate was half of the residential, which it's now about 2/3. When the AC was introduced, the AC was about 3/4 of the residential, and it's now about 85 or 90%. So that's been creeping up, getting closer and closer to 1 meter type service. So that's that. Now, my little story. Back in 2019, 2020, they were doing wintertime, late fall, tree trimming on my street. I live on a street, private street, straight line street, okay, well graded, well maintained, 1,500 feet long, and there's houses down at the end of my street, and I'm halfway down. And when these guys come along to do their trimming, naturally, they trim and your trees don't really look nice and all that. But I happen to point out to them that just across my street, which is only 25 or 30 feet wide, I says, look, the fall zone for the tree at the end of my driveway, there's a big limb there that can reach over and knock out the electric service. How about you guys, as long as you're here with a truck and you're doing all of this stuff, why don't you just whack off that one limb that's going to reach over and knock out those lines? So I happened to be a homeowner that has some fruit trees, and so I was out trimming my fruit trees, and it happened to be the day, December 30th, not New Year's Eve. They proceeded to prune the trees in front of my house. At 3 in the afternoon, they climbed in their trucks, and they sat in their trucks with them running, with the heaters going, for the next 2 hours, and left, and went home, thank you very much. They had all the equipment there. They had all the capability. In the process of the 2 days that they were on my street, I asked them 3 times, guys, look, you've got this great big boom truck. You've got all the equipment. You're right here. Why the heck can't you guys just lop off that big limb that's going to reach over and knock out the power lines one of these days? I mean, when you look at things, the cell towers have a fall zone. That's the big deal. Nothing in the range of where a cell tower can fall over can it hit anything that's valuable. The same thing exists for windmills. But when these guys go and trim the trees, they say, well, we got to have this halo of maybe 5 or 10 feet, and hey, after that, we don't care. So that's my little story.
Do you remember approximately when that was?
It was either 2019 or 2020.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking it was fairly recent, you might be able to track down those guys in the team, but not that far back. Who would like to be next? Please come on.
Good afternoon, or good evening. I'm also a owner of a home in Wexford Views in the city of Wixom. And again, I'm going to talk about December 31st power surge. Currently right now, I am looking at anywhere between a $20,000 to $30,000 insurance claim because I had a power surge protector that was underneath my bed basically melt and spew out a metallic-y type smell, which a power surge has resistors and capacitors in, and that smell to this day is still in my bedroom. I've been sleeping on my couch since December 31st of 2022. Okay, just trying to get things resolved. Now, just like the other gentleman from Wixom, we did have something back in 2019. I'm the original homeowner there. I've been there for almost 30, maybe 32 years. And the last 10, we've had more power outages and power surge than I can even tell you how many. Now, I actually filed a claim with DET online when this happened. And the only thing I get out of DET is please fill out my survey and tell us how we're doing. Okay? They never responded to my claim. Never was, Mr. Ostash, we deny it. I got nothing from them.
And not even your $35, huh?
No. Touche. The other thing I wanted to talk about, back in September of this last year, I put in a new furnace, okay? Well, the furnaces from 30 years ago to today are a lot more sophisticated, okay? And what happened, on one of the last 2 snowstorms we had, I lost my heat. So I called out the company to put it in, and I said, well, this, and this happened. The truth of the story is the furnace actually has a safety device on it where if your AC voltage coming into your home fluctuates too much, it shuts down the furnace and you don't get any heat. Now that's governmental controls, just like a new car. They have new standards. They got new standards on furnaces too. But it's like, wait a minute. Here it is. The AC voltage is fluctuating so much in my subdivision that it's kicking out my furnace. That's crazy. Okay, yes, it's a safety device, and I understand that. I don't really have anything else to say, but we are very frustrated. We really are, and we're not getting anything out of DET.
They have promised me they will be in touch. We will be following up to make sure that's happening. Like I said, my experience with them when I've had something happen in the community, they say, this is a problem, you guys better get over it, you better solve it. They've done it. These big outages, though, is this first time I've dealt with this in a public forum. They said they will get back to you, so I'm certain they will. Would like to be next. I put it on.
Real quick, thank you for being here. My name is David P. Smith. My current house is 1625 Mead Lane, just down the street from where you live. I was in that whole tornado thing where we lost power, and I've lost power several times over the past 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. I didn't really lose anything about 2 weeks ago. But what I would like to discuss is my office building here is at the corner of Richardson and Martin, 8615 Richardson. And every time it comes up, it shows like 25 people out of power. One is Montessori school, one is a whole crew of industrial and residential offices. I think in 2021, I lost 5.5 weeks with tenants, Montessori school completely out. 2022, I probably lost 5.5 weeks, no power or anything like that. They finally came in last year and decided to clip all the trees in our area, and I talked to the representative, and he says, your power grid out here, especially in this area, is antiquated. And so that's always been a problem, because when everyone else is showing, 2,000-3,000 people, they don't realize they've got Montessori school, a whole bunch of office buildings and everything else that are all out of power. And finally, one of the last things I do want to say is not dealing so much with Detroit Edison. Since all this done, I've tried to install $40,000, 2 different generator systems. And this has been a nightmare. And what I'd like to sit down and say is that with Consumers Power, I started the process last September of putting a generator in at my office and at the house. I just got a notice from Consumers Power telling me that I won't get an updated gas meter till fourth quarter of 2023 or the first quarter of 2024. So I got $25,000 generator that's completely useless because I can't hook it up to the gas grid. So if I lose power, I'm completely lost. So.
And then you have both DTE and Consumers
I can't tell you who. I have both DTE, but one of my final complaint is that I can't upgrade to a generator because Consumers Power cannot, because of supply chains, get me a new 425 gas meter. Otherwise, I can't run my generator in my house. So.
Consumers didn't make the same promise, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, I did get $100 2 years ago, and then I'm sure I'm going to get the $35. you know, but I have a multi-tenant office building, and I think wasn't last year, it was 2021, one of my tenants just upped and just, I came in and there's a plant in the middle of the floor, all the dirt and everything. I hired a crew after the second outage of 2021, picked everything up, and moved the entire office building completely out. I mean, I was just stuck there going, what in the hell is this? You know what I mean? So, you know, that was 12 months at $2,400 a piece. You know what I mean? So
You should have had $35, so.
I think I had 100 on that one. So for the 24,000 I lost, you know what I mean? I felt blessed. So thank you for your time. You know what I mean? And everybody coming here, thank you very much.
Who would like to be next? Yes.
Hello, Senator. Thank you so much for coming out. I had 4 items that I wanted to bring to your attention. I know the first one's going to be close to your heart because it concerns seniors. So I live in South Lyon, and we have about 16% of our 65-plus seniors live alone. And in the last 4 years, there have been so many power outages. I know we have a lot in the summer when we have these big storms that come through, but when we have these winter power outages, I'm very concerned for the seniors who don't have anywhere to go. The last one that we had, this last snowstorm just a couple weeks ago, we had many communities or many houses in our community without power for 5, 6, 7 days. And that's concerning. I have my dad here, he's a senior. My mom and dad moved to South Lyon 5 years ago, and within a year and a half, they had to invest in a generator. And this is a newer development as well. So the power that's being brought to their community, all of the lines are underground, but all of the supply lines are above ground. And that brings me to my next point, which has to do with South Lyon being a tree city. So as a tree city, we have tons of trees. And driving around our community, it is shocking how many lines are integrated into the tree system. We have entire transformers that are surrounded by limbs. It blows my mind that they would even have power lines anywhere near trees. But if you go through our community, and even in this past week, our DPW is in a constant state of trying to get all these tree limbs picked up because they fell and they took out all the power lines. So it's very concerning for us in that community. And then also for growth. I know that we have a lot of growth taking place in South Lyon and Lyon Township. And normally the communities will have at least 12 months in advance to let DTE know that these large communities are coming into play, but they have made very little investment in the supply line and capacity for that growth. So that's also very concerning. And then lastly, you know, we've had a lot of folks working from home these last couple of years. And I know my husband and I work from home, and we lost power twice now, and that's only in the last 2 months. So I think we're gonna have to invest in a generator now because we lose productivity whenever that goes down. So I just wanted to bring those items to your attention because it continues to be an ongoing issue. We've lived in South Lyon now for almost 7, 8 years, and it is just a constant plague of power outages. And it doesn't matter if it's winter, summer, spring, fall, we still get those issues.
Any information?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll have to make sure that they do get back in touch with you.
All right, thank you.
Who would like to be next? Yes.
Hey Jim, thank you. I'm Chris Enlow. I'm one of the elected officials at Lyon Township, one of the trustees. And I really wasn't going to speak, but I'm here, so I wanted to listen and get it. One of the issues that we've been running into, kind of echoing here, is the constant power outages that we've had over the years. This last outage, our wastewater and water treatment plants were down for 4 days. So we were running diesel generators, diesel gas back and forth to fill the generators for over 4 days. And what the people don't realize is, you know, if those go down, we start backing up sewage into people's basements. So that's a huge issue, especially along our 10-mile corridor where all the transmission lines and stuff are overhead. Personally, I was lucky, I only lost power for a couple hours. But I guess what I want to say is, what can we do as a community? You know, people from Wixom have spoke, people from Commerce Township have spoke. What can we do as communities to help, whether it's legislatively or opening that door conversation to DTE to get them into our communities to help, whether it's more additional tree trimming, access rights within our public spaces to help them with the upgrades. I guess that's kind of where I want to see some solutions, is what can we do to kind of help them out to help us out.
Do you think that if we either in like a conference call, a Zoom, or send a survey to all the elected officials in the district to get their input, that would help? And if so, which of those do you think would be the most impactful?
Probably, yeah, either a conference call or I guess banding all the communities together, really. I mean, you've heard from a lot of them in your district that if we're all on the same call together, maybe that will push DTE to show up and talk to us and hear us out.
We'll discuss that as the staff, whether we will send an email out, get everybody's input, every single elected official in the district, and then put those ideas into a letter, and then put all the signatures on the letter to send to DTE. That might be a better way. What discussions is a great concept. I think it's always more effective to be unified when you're dealing with these things. So we'll definitely get back to you on that. It's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
I see Steve Brown in the back. Here, City Manager for Wixom.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to step in and talk a little bit. See, I overcompensate. I should have, somebody turned up the mic on me. Sorry about that. I've heard from a lot of Wixom residents this evening, and I've heard from a lot more Wixom residents prior to that with the collection of information that Mr. Fields mentioned, that we had one resident that stepped up to the plate and really did a great job of surveying everybody, and we got a great deal of information that we've shared with DTE. We've gone to steps to include hiring a professional consultant to assist with evaluating what's going on in this circumstance, because there was a lot of very odd experiences. Some people mentioned flames, shooting out of surge suppressors and things of this nature, something that would be indicative of a very big problem with the system and the network that's providing service through DTE. So we're going to be submitting some information to DTE on that shortly. We've called the information together and we're ready to roll forward with that. But what I really want to kind of chime in with this evening, as opposed to just adding additional detail to that, I would like to put it out there for anybody that's a Wixom resident that would like to offer feedback on their level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction with DTE. We would love for them to do that, and I would encourage them to email my office at citymanager@wixomgov.org. That's citymanager, no spaces, no uppercase, no lowercase, at wixomgov.org. I also spoke with Larry Gray, the Commerce Township Supervisor, and asked him if he would be interested in that. He is. His email address he would use for that, if you're a Commerce Township resident, is lgray@commercetwp.com. Larry, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I get it right? Great. So it's lgray@commercetwp.com. We're both interested in getting feedback from people that are affected positively or negatively by DTE and their service levels, because we're looking to expand this. We've had other experiences in Wixom where certain areas seem to have disproportionate impacts of power outages and things of that nature, and we managed to get the ear of DTE at one point and make some changes. That's what we're looking to do here. We're looking to lobby DTE to make improvements to the system to lessen the impact of these power outages. People in this area that were affected by the 1231 outage talk about having 3, 4, 5, 6 plus power outages on a yearly basis as a matter of course, and that's frankly unacceptable as far as I'm concerned, and we need to come up with a better way to service those areas and to address basic infrastructure issues, if it's tree trimming that was mentioned, and is something that's always a point of focus for DTE. Some things have to change so that people can have more reliable power, and these kind of things are a thing of the past, and that's what we're looking to bring about. If you're interested, again, please use that email to contact us and provide some information. We would be keenly interested in what you have to say, and thank you, Senator, for putting this event on today.
Thank you, Steve, for that information. Who would like to be next? Yes.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Bill Newser from White Lake, 100 yards north of Commerce Township, though, so right in the middle. Just wanted to mention about this most recent ice storm. My wife and I were empty nesters. I have 6 days without power. We spent 3 days at home until it got down to 42 degrees, and that was just too cold. So we jumped around to 3 hotels that, based on availability and on price. But once that was over, we got the power back. And then today I pulled out my old utilities file where I make notes, and I'm a spreadsheet person. So I made the list. This is our 18th outage in 15 years. And it's up to 535 hours. Just wanted to make that point. And another point is, I wonder if DTE in their algorithm for prioritizing could include areas that are on wells. Because when you're out of power, you got to figure out who's going to flush after how many days. And another thing, our subdivision is only 25 years old. It's got all underground wiring, so why do we have 18 outages in 15 years? Thank you.
You're absolutely right. We've lost power sometimes 3, 4, 5 days, and we're on a well, so we're buying a lot of water and to flush those toilets. Who would like to be next? Yes.
Hello, my name is Ed Dijak. I'm from Milford. Thank you for coming here, Senator. And my concern, you know, we're talking right now about all these immediate problems with the power supply, but what is DTE's long-term, what are they thinking long-term? I mean, we see all these wind and solar, they're talking about it, you got great rates and all this other stuff, but these supplies are intermittent and unreliable. And if they're talking, they want to, you know, bring on all these electric vehicles, which is only going to put a greater strain on the grid, and people are going to be charging their cars in the evening when the sun's not shining. And why isn't DTE moving more toward nuclear and other clean energy sources that aren't intermittent and unreliable? You know, I love the fact that DTE, you know, you drive down 96 and there's this big, beautiful solar array there where you can see, and they're positioning everything where you can see how, oh, look, we're green. But, you know, all these panels, they're made in China. The same thing with the windmills. All those come from China too. I have friends up in the Thumb area. I know it's outside of your district, but the point is there's windmills all over the Thumb. The whole area is horrible to look at because there's windmills everywhere, destroys the natural scenery. And again, the power isn't even going to the Thumb residents. I have a friend who works for the Economic Development Council in Huron County, and they can't get power to new businesses there. All the power is going to Bay City and Cadillac. And none of it that's being generated right there in the Thumb is going to the Thumb. And DTE says, well, you know, we can't help your company. You want to build a company, but we can't get you power. And again, where is the foresight? I don't see any kind of long-term plan. We're making China rich by using their solar panels and windmills, and we could be generating that money, generating the savings here, and using our own nuclear facilities, building nuclear that is clean, and we're not paying the money to China. That's all I have to say.
I can't disagree. I believe they're actually going to close the nuclear plant that's operating now down. Yeah. So it's going to require that. When I chaired the finance committee, there was all of the local units of government coming in from the Thumb and saying they didn't notice in the contract they were depreciating massively those windmills. So what they thought they were going to receive in annual payments imploded, and they're wondering when they last about 25 years, and then somebody's got to come in and disassemble those. It would cost a fortune to take them down.
Yes.
Is that even going to get done? So, yeah, it's not a simple solution. You're absolutely right about the panels, and the majority of windmills are made in China.
And why can't we be building more nuclear? I mean, that's a clean, carbon neutral. Just saying.
All right, who would like to be next? Back, yes.
Hello. Senator, thank you for coming and thank you for receiving these comments and concerns. My name is Kimberly Clayton and I'm coming from Waterford. I'm currently employed at Canterbury on the Lake, which is a senior facility. We house over 250 seniors, providing various cares to the residents. I would like to speak to some of the concerns that I've experienced with the recent ice storm. It was very troubling for me, and I serve as Director of Fund Development, so we are a nonprofit, so I look for ways to raise money to help our residents. And so we lost power, and I've only been there 7 months. Within that 7 months, we've lost power at Canterbury 3. And in the past 2 years, we've lost power about 7 times. It's too much. My question to DTE, if I may, is can we have some type of protocol where we are assigned a representative, a human person that we can speak to, that can speak to our seniors to reassure them when, where power is going to be restored. Seniors are already in a fragile state. And we don't want to put more on them. And when power goes out, there's panic, just natural. And if we can't get in touch with a person, a physical person to tell us who, what, when, where, and why, how are we to be able to serve our residents? And so I would like to see a personal representative from DTE to be assigned to every senior community so that they can actually speak to someone and get some answers instead of waiting and having robots and the runaround. Music is nice to listen to, but action speaks more than words.
So when you call in, you just call in the basic number, be busy, you're waiting.
Customer care, you know, and then they bounce you around, and then we never have a person that will get back to us. Now, luckily, we had Representative Mike Harris. He actually phoned our executive director and spoke to her directly, and he was right in it with us, and he listened to our concerns, and you know, he did what he could to restore our power. And luckily for Canterbury, we only were without power almost 2 days, which is still too long. So there's something has to be done, and our wires are underground as well, and we're constantly losing power, and I just don't understand that. If it's connected to an outer transmitter, is that being serviced correctly, or are we just putting Band-Aids instead of correcting it officially?
We have your information.
Yes.
This is a great suggestion, particularly for seniors that are homebound, immunity. We may not have the ability to go out and get food or anything, so it's a great suggestion. I will bring that up with them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Who would like to be next? Yes.
Hello, I'm Scott Peterson. I'm also a Wixom resident. I don't live in Wexford Mews. I live on the other side of Wixom Road in an older subdivision. Our problem is totally different. One of our lines comes through a swampy area, so we have power flickering constantly. And you'll set the clocks, and 20 minutes later you'll reset the clocks. Some days we've gone 5, 7 times resetting clocks and different things because of the power flickering. And so you always wonder, well, when the power flicks, how long is it going to be before it goes out? And usually it stays on, but obviously there's some issue because it's usually when we have a heavy rain, heavy wind, heavy snow, whatever, that we have the flickering power. Surprising in Wixom, maybe Mr. Resnick would remember when it was, but it was probably at least 5-6 years ago. There was a big problem throughout Wixom where power was flickering on and off constantly, it seemed like. And I just happened to be down in Jackson, Michigan at an Arby's having a meal, and TVs are on there, and lo and behold, there was Wixom on the main news, and the power company had finally come and decided to talk to the city officials about what they could do about this, and it made a huge improvement in the power that my wife and I received. They added a second, like, supplemental type line to feed ours, because, like I said, we would be gone out of power a lot. And I'm just hoping that something can be done to just upgrade. I thought our sub was really kind of unusual, and now I find that our sub is not unusual. It's has nothing to do with the age of the sub, because our sub's been there forever, and Wexford Muse is much newer, and they're having, seems like, even bigger problems than we are. And just a comment about how things ran this year versus last year. When the power was out this year, it was not it was an issue my wife and I could deal with. If this had happened last year, it wouldn't have been an issue I could deal with, because I was ill and had to be on oxygen. And I had the machine that ran through electricity and drew oxygen out of the air. I don't know what I would have done this year when the power was out, from Wednesday through, it was Saturday. So just hopefully something can get done. I'll fill my card out and give it to you in a minute.
Thank you. And you pointed out something that's very important, these health issues. Sometimes you have to have something electronic to keep you alive, right? Very, very important. We probably have time for one more, maybe two. So all right, I'll make sure and get both of you. Come on forward. Try to keep it about 2 minutes, because we're.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. A couple things. The thing that I would like to say is that I use the DTE app. It does work, and it seems to be a good thing that they did. They've done some tree trimming, but I think they still got a lot more to do. Smart meters tell them what's going on. Some of the bad things, I think the reimbursement of $35 sucks after 2 days. It should be, after that, a certain daily amount added on in increasing rate. The crew that we had, they were very slow to respond to the fact that there was a 13,200 volt line that had been broken. Fortunately, the fuse blew, so it wasn't live, but they hadn't taped it off. The crew that did respond was from Nashville, and I'd like to say thank you to those guys that came all the way up to here to do it. One of the problems that we have is that we're killing off our generation systems. The Trenton plant is closed. The one up on the St. Clair River is closed. There is the one on the Detroit River near Detroit was closed some time ago. We're not replacing them, and we're using natural gas. Oh, we saved the planet. The green stuff doesn't work that well. As I think I've heard people say, we don't have hydropower like some places do. So it is a problem. Our redundancy, our level of reserves is now below the suggested level. We have reached the point where we don't have enough reserves to handle surges in demand. So I think we need to stop thinking about solar and wind. Let's start thinking about how we're going to serve the people and all those future things. I do have a plug-in car. It's a hybrid, but I use very little on it. In fact, my house is extremely thin. The last thing I'll say is the grid is extremely complex. If you sit there and think about how power gets from the Fermi plant down in Lake Erie up to here. You see these high tension lines like down at M5 and 96, 275. Those are the lines that bring it up to here. Then it goes to a plant. There's one over on Commerce, between Commerce and Commerce, south of Commerce. That's a substation that takes some of that power, brings it down to 13,200 volts, which is what's at the top of our poles. We only see the local poles. We don't see the big picture of this. It's extremely complex, and we think back to, what was it, 20 years ago when they had the problem down in Cleveland, wiped out the whole northeast part of the U.S. So I feel for Detroit Edison, but I feel they're not doing enough, and I think there's more reimbursement required, and I thought they were rather slow to respond. I'm wondering if they've gotten rid of the crews or whatever. I just don't know. But
they'll definitely get back with you on these questions.
Yeah.
A lot of great information.
I appreciate your time today.
All right, we'll try to get both of you in, so let's make it real quick.
I'll shoot for 30 seconds. I'm a Waterford Township resident also. On our street, we're like the Bermuda Triangle. We have about 35 homes or so on our street. The street on one side of us always has power. The street on the other side of us always has power. Ours goes out. And so when you look at the little app, it also shows that there's just a couple of houses affected. It's not a widespread thing. I don't have a spreadsheet like the gentleman over here, but we've blown past 18 outages in 15 years. We get several every year. So that's our thing, is there's got to be something if there's reliable power in the rest of the sub, there's some reason why our road goes out frequently, and it is hard to get a hold of a human being to talk about it.
Well, we're hearing that as a pretty consistent concern. Yes, Kim.
Hello, Senator. Thank you for being here. Chad Forster, Wolverine Lake. Mine's more directed towards the legislative body. There's not a lot of faith I have in DTE having an interest in representing their customers. I mean, they just don't do it. And correct me if I'm wrong with any of this. My understanding is that Michigan has the most per capita outages of any state in the country.
I think they're number 2 is what I heard.
Okay. And the rates, top 10 are, so no other area is experiencing what Michigan experiences, especially given the rates we're paying and the number of outages. And I've heard that we lead the country in the length of outages. So why aren't they held accountable? I mean, why is it I know the MPSC, which I agree, needs a strong overhauling. It should be representatives of the whole Michigan in districts, elected people in different districts to represent MPSC. But there should be some kind of, the legislators should step up, and what you're doing is extremely appreciative. I think we all very much appreciate it. But there needs to be the legislative body stepping up and saying, hey, the MPSC needs to be overhauled. There need to be held accountable for what we're experiencing, it's the worst in the nation. And nothing ever gets done. And I concur with your joke about the $35. That's insulting. I mean, there's people that lose hundreds, thousands of dollars, and nothing ever happens. That's all. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. We do have to wrap up. I wish we had a little more time in case there were any other questions. I want to hopefully get with everybody. If there's anybody that we didn't anyone we didn't get to, write out your information, get it to Kevin here, and we'll get that over to DTE for a response. They did say they were going to respond to everybody. So with that, I'm going to save the rest of my voice. We're in session tomorrow. I'm going to have to try to use it again. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.